You find yourself caught in a storm, in a particularly unforgiving night. You decide to seek shelter in a seemingly abandoned house, but upon entering the building you find something curious. An old television, turned on, as though it's been waiting for you. You decide to venture over to it. Beside the television, you find a copy of Teletubbies in the Snow. It has an inviting aura about it, as though it wishes to be played. Would you look at that, it's even been rewound. You find yourself curious, wondering whether or not this contains the episode with the bear and the lion. So against your better judgment, you insert the VHS into the VCR, and in doing so you seal your own fate. For that VHS opened up a doorway, straight to the ident zone. Just what is it that is so scary about this ident? It used to play before every BBC VHS that I owned. And every time it played, and even now when I think about it, it just fills me with a weird sense of dread. I first mentioned being terrified of this ident in a video I made with my friend Louis, in which we watched old adverts together. And since then he's constantly made fun of me because of it. In fact, when I told him that I was making this video, he sent me this. So today I'm going to find out exactly why it is that this ident and so many others just terrified me as a kid and to an extent still scares me to this day. So on first glance the BBC ident might not look that scary. It's just the BBC logo, some kind of colourful squiggles. But I think it's the music combined with this image is what does it. It's ominous, foreboding and a tiny bit ethereal. And oh, it just makes my brain itch. Obviously the BBC don't use this ident anymore, most likely because it terrified so many people. So let's take a look at the ident that they're currently using. So seemingly they've learnt nothing, because to me this is equally as terrifying. For a start it's longer, so I have to endure even more of this hell. And they're still using the dark black background, with splashes of colour breaking through the void. I mean, what is that supposed to be, fireworks? But again, the thing which is the most terrifying about it has to be the music. There's something about it, it just doesn't feel right. And no sir, I don't like it. But this whole thing isn't just specific to BBC. There were so many terrifying idents plaguing my VHS collection. So let's look at another. So that was VCI, Video Collection International. So let's go through the checklist. We've got the horrible dark endless void, except this time it's got the outline of a globe on it. Unlike the BBC ident, however, this one doesn't have much colour at all. It's got the red of a ball and that's about it. The rest of it is just grey and black 90s texturing. You know, like the kind of thing you'd find in the really old Pixar shorts. And of course the music is just horrible. All just uncanny, deep, crashing horribleness. I don't know, I'm a little bit struggling to explain just what made these idents so scary to me. It's a very primal fear and impossibly difficult to describe. It's quite similar to the sounds you hear when you die in a video game. But no, I don't think this is the sounds that you'd hear when you're dead. This is how I imagine it sounds before you're born. Is it just because these sounds tap into some of my earliest memories? Yes it is. I hear these sounds and I'm immediately transported back to the days of being a powerless, helpless toddler with a nappy full of shit. There's no more distractions, no more episodes of Postman Pat, just the feeling of being truly alone waiting for my mother to return to change the VHS. Something which is pretty similar to this feeling and all over the internet at the moment is liminal spaces, which are like weird little gaps in reality. Usually things like abandoned buildings or a school at night, and they're usually a bit surreal and make you feel uneasy. Or as Google defines it, liminal space refers to the place a person is in during a transitional period. It's a gap and can be physical like a doorway, emotional like a divorce, or metaphorical, like a decision. Or I don't know, it could be the transition between one VHS and another. You'd be greeted with these idents at the beginning and end of a VHS, and as such is literally the transitional bridge between VHSs. Everything ending but everything beginning again too, like the last day of school. It's just, I don't know, see, it's very difficult to explain. Let me give you another example. This is by far the scariest of all the idents. This is to entertain. What was that, right? Why was that so terrifying? I defy anyone to say that that is not even slightly creepy. And I know I'm not alone in this. If you look at the top comment on that video, it says, "This logo used to scare me to death as a kid. This logo used to play before all the Doctor Who DVDs. And as a kid, this is the thing I found most terrifying about those DVDs. Like, sure, fine, I'm happy to watch as many Weeping Angels as you want. But please just don't make me watch that big number 2 ominously hum at me." Again, much like all those liminal spaces, all of these logos are kind of in a nether zone of nothing. Nothing surrounding them other than some light. And this one especially, it seems like they've just got all the scariest noises they can and chucked them all together. Here's another unnecessarily scary one. So that was Icon Home Entertainment, and honestly, what was their intention with that ident? Because unlike 2 Entertain and BBC, which are kind of indescribably scary, this one's overtly and obviously made to be scary. I mean, you've got the lightning, you've got the big creepy eye. This one used to come on before Thomas and the Magic Railroad. No wonder that film used to scare me so much as a kid. And this stuff wasn't just restricted to VHSs or DVDs, there were things like this on TV as well. You know how some kids' channels used to stop airing late at night? Well, God forbid you're ever up late one night and you turn onto one of these channels. You'd just be met by silence and something saying, "Good night, see you tomorrow." Or something like that, but it always came across kind of creepy and passive aggressive, like an angry parent saying, "Go to sleep." Especially the Nick Jr. one. And this one's going to be very specific to me, but I actually used to really love the Nick Jr. nighttime close down thing. It had all the different characters from all the different Nick Jr. shows together in a kind of crossover. And one night I stayed up extra late just so I could take a picture of it on my little digital camera. Now, I got this digital camera for Christmas when I was about 5 years old, and I used to take pictures of just anything that I liked. So I took a picture of the TV one night, went to sleep, and then uploaded it to my computer the next day. And the photo of the TV wasn't there. But what was there in its place was a photo of a man staring back at me. I showed my parents and they claimed not to know anything about it or know the man. But I remember the picture so vividly. It was like a man in an office staring forward on his desk, like looming into the screen. Now, as an adult, I can only assume that this was taken by one of my parents and this was a picture of someone they worked with. But I don't know, even that seems quite unlikely. But one thing I do know for sure is that after that day, I sure as hell never watched Nick Jr. after bedtime again. But weirdly, not every single ident used to freak me out. For example, let's look at the Talkback Thames one. See, here the music's quite jolly, and we're presented with a nice background, rather than the nothing hellscape of the other idents. I remember this ident playing before Sooty and Button Moon. And Button Moon's a whole surreal nightmare of its own. So in comparison, the Talkback Thames logo was pretty light. On the subject of idents, there is one more thing which did scare me, and admittedly, still does legitimately scare me to this day. Or at the very least, make me deeply uncomfortable. That being PlayStation. Throughout their history, they have done such a good job at ruining my day before I've even started playing a game. So let's start with the original PlayStation. So looking back at our checklist, we certainly have the empty background, a dash of colour just floating in the middle, and a long droning sound consisting of all the horrors and nightmares of the universe.
Ooh, that's a bingo!
Next we have the PlayStation 2 startup. And once you've got through your descent into the white blocks, the PlayStation logo is thankfully quite short and not too terrifying. That is of course so long as you actually made it this far, as if you happen to have placed in a disc that's broken, your journey doesn't end with the white blocks, and instead you continue your descent to what I can only assume is hell. Come on, my disc is already scratched up and I'm not going to be able to play Taz Wanted. Don't punish me further, PlayStation. PlayStation 3. Again, super ominous music, and the visuals are very reminiscent of the BBC ident. PlayStation 4. Not the worst, but the music still gets me a bit. And again, the PlayStation 5 just has to follow suit. I genuinely think this may be a large factor as to why I stopped playing PlayStation so much and moved over to Nintendo consoles. Just comparing the Gamecube startup screen to the PlayStation one, whilst yes, the Gamecube startup screen does have the same empty black background. Here everything's a bit bouncy and the music is nice and playful, inviting me in rather than trying to terrify me half to death. So that's it. That's all the creepy idents I'm going to cover in this video. Yes, I know that there are more out there, and if you guys want to leave me some recommendations for some idents that scare you, then please do. Or just leave a comment saying about how it's stupid to be scared of any of these, and I'm an absolute fool. Give this video a like if it brought back some memories, maybe even a subscribe, and I'll see you next time.